Um, everyone, I am your host for another edition of the Wrestling Underground podcast, Chad Bordo, and joining me as always is my glorious co-host, the one, the only, the Marcus Green. Marcus, how are you?
Going okay, still mean and quarantining.
Cleaning and quarantining, the new Ric Flair motto. One bank review. I'm typing out the tweet. ACH and Leo Rush. More. Get rid of the second. And so, Marcus, it's been a week. We might have basketball back here in a few weeks. That could be fun. Are you excited about a possible NBA season continuing sans the fans?
Yeah. Either way for me. No, either way for me. Um, Sans. That'll be interesting. Sans the fans. That'll probably be it. Um, but then that real intriguing for me at this point. It's almost more entertaining watching people re-debate to death Jordan's legacy with this whole Last Dance thing that's going on.
Yeah. That's funny. So we are here. We are setting up for a exciting show. But what's not been exciting has been Raw for 20 years, 15 years. I'd say actually 13 years. I think it was good into 2006, but then in '07, right before, like that's when things started to go sideways. That's when they started to rely too heavily on Cena. They went full kitsch with the whole Cena-ness. SmackDown became a revolving door of champions because everyone was getting hurt. And instead of creating new opportunities for people, they just shoved Kali in there. So, that was a bad idea. I think one of the main events for the pay-per-views were Kane versus Kali at one point. They stopped doing the brand split in its entirety and started to combine the pay-per-views, which were a bad idea. And then they went PG. And while PG is not necessarily bad, early on it was campy as fuck, and not funny campy like Bruce Wayne and 1966 Batman campy, but like campy as in whoever is doing this doesn't know their audience campy. But I think the reason why the ratings have hit record lows, I think it's like 1.78 million people, has very little to do with the product, actually. And I'm going to share a little bit of info with you from my own personal life. So the ratings have dropped by about 800,000, maybe a million people. Part of the issue, obviously, is one, I think it's an aesthetic thing. I think fans are kind of treating fanless wrestling events as kind of doesn't count. They see the fans, they don't hear the fans, and they're not done with the product, they're not done with the industry, but there's a certain rush that you get when you hear the reactions. It's kind of like going to a comedy show and you're the only one there, and you don't know the comedian. You're not sure if what the person's saying is just mean-spirited or if it's supposed to be funny. So you kind of let the audience dictate what is and isn't supposed to be. It's kind of that shared social mindset. It's that idea that laws and rules and ethics and morality are based in part because of the society around us. So wrestling has the same effect. If someone comes out, oh my God, is this a big deal? I don't know. There's no one there to tell me. Now, that's kind of just a more loose kind of observation, not so much a edict of I don't know what's a big deal in wrestling because I'm a dummy. I do know what a big deal in wrestling is because I'm not a dummy. But one of the things that you guys may not know is that I'm actually a professional writer. And one of the things that I do is get yelled at a lot by fans because they think I have shit takes. Fair enough. But one of the things I also do is I engage with fans, and part of the reason for that is because engaging with fans helps our numbers. Now, Marcus, I'm sure you've heard this before. Oh, so-and-so just posted an article to make money. You've heard that before. Doesn't matter what the article
Money,
is.
click. Yep.
Clickbait, money, clicks, whatever. Yeah, and 100%, you're right. if we weren't getting paid, we wouldn't be doing this because we need a job. It's not some big cabal. We're not getting you. It's not some big ha 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 ha. Didn't see it coming. We write about topics that fans are interested about because we know our audience. Now, the NFL draft just happened. And the entire month of April, it was draft coverage and draft this and draft that. And between me and my partner on one of the sites I write for, we probably posted about 50 different draft pieces. And we were told by the people we work for that draft pieces are really good for monetary budgets. You know, it increases the brand. People click a lot of stuff on drafts, so put draft in the title as many times as you can. You know, exhibit that. Yo, dog, I heard you like drafts in your drafts on your drafts, so I put a draft in your draft. And April was our worst month since I've joined the site. Just dog garbage tanked. And I'm thinking, well, maybe people just don't like me. Marcus, I've already made more money in the first 5 days of May than I have in April to go combined. So I know it's not me. But I looked at other numbers from other sites from around the conglomerate we're with. Everyone was down in April. I looked at the site. I looked at the ratings for television shows. Everyone was down in April. I have a feeling that Raw and SmackDown and AEW, they basically went into the worst month possible because everything was down. I think people maybe they didn't watch for a number of reasons. Maybe because they were home more often and needed to use the night times to readjust their schedules. Maybe they were unaware of what day it is because today, Marcus, it is going to be Wednesday in 2 hours. I thought today was Saturday for the longest time. I also thought it was Monday for the longest time.
I've been pretty decent about keeping up with the days just because I still watch stuff on TV that's scheduled. So between that and just staying abreast in general, but it did happen to me one day last week. Well, I thought it was one day, and I was like, oh shit, it's like Saturday or Sunday. So you know, that kind of was like a little wake up call because in my mind, I'm like, okay, this is not going to happen to me. Like, I'm not going to be one of these people like, what day is it? And then I'm like, oh, shoot, it happened. So, yeah, it's it's like an extended Twilight episode in reality.
Yeah, and I think that's part of the reason. I think another part of the reason is because there's no fans and it kind of turns the viewer base off. Yeah. So I think it's a concoction of reasons why the ratings are down so hard. And that's not to take away to say that the show's been good. Vince McMahon has not had an idea of what to do in God knows how long. And frankly, Vince McMahon's legacy has been revealed. I remember reading someone's tweet, and I forgot who it was, but they said that the last 20 years of Vince McMahon's legacy is going to be really tainted. And I thought to myself, Vince McMahon already had 6 good years. What are you talking about? Yeah. Because before the Attitude Era, he was, running off the coattails of Hulkamania, and before that, he was using his father's stars. So Vince stole AWA's biggest attraction and got credit for it. Then Vince stole, he discovered and curated Stone Cold and The Rock and rode that to a peak. And then outside of that, he's been really bad at his job, and he has been for years. And in fact, he's hurt the industry more than he's ever helped it.
I mean, if the last however many years of declining ratings of Raw, which have several reasons, mainly creative. Others I'm sure you're going to get to shortly. But between the last however many years with the shows going down, obviously poor business practices and decisions being made, this year alone, just the Dark Side of the Ring is just gonna pile that on. The guy has not looked good in anything. So aside from people giving him credit for being a quote unquote decent businessman, which they very much credit a larger villain who's in a certain position in this country right now as well. I think everybody pretty much knows the man's a giant douche tool.
You're not wrong, but there's so much more I need to add on to that before the idea goes cold. Vince McMahon as a businessman has been bad. He was successful. He took his father's company. He got it a little bit bigger. Then he nearly killed it. Then he got lucky that the NWO caused a wrestling boom. It wasn't the WWE. It wasn't Vince McMahon. It wasn't the Attitude Era that caused the boom. It was the NWO. He rode that, created a great character in Stone Cold Steve Austin that he was able to capitalize off of. But after Stone Cold left, his promotion started to go down. He tanked the industry, so there's no one there to steal talent from. And he continued to fumble his way through mediocrity. But along the way, he's killed 2 football leagues. Shane McMahon had this wild idea in 2000 to buy, or like 2001, to buy the UFC, and Vince scoffed at the idea. Think about that one. The $1 billion UFC, which is bigger and more successful than the WWE is, in part because of the same practices, but still, could have been a WWE property. Their film movies have been largely money losers. The network has been a money loser. They used to have a TV channel. Money loser. Vince McMahon succeeds on merchandising and contracts with 2 networks only. He has a mildly successful wrestling business that he's almost killed twice. And he's a good businessman? What? Are you collectively high? Vince McMahon's one of the worst businessmen of all time. Yes, he can lobby Congress to keep people from getting fair pay. And he can make sure that independent contractors are screwed 7 ways from Sunday. But that makes him a good businessman, apparently. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, it's funny because when I say quote unquote, these are the people who exclusively only look at, well, if he wasn't a good businessman, they wouldn't be bringing in profit, Chad. So clearly, these millions, and when they're in the black, clearly he's doing something right.
Why are we talking about Bobby Lashley again? That's a knee slapper.
We will make millions off of Blurby. But no,
Blurbed? Lana's starring in a new Pornhub movie. Blurbed. Starring Lana from WWE and Blurby. Once you go Blurby, all you'll have is herpes.
Hilarious. And Rusev's, of course, is the cuck in the corner. God, I hate those films. Shaking his hands wildly, going Machka the whole time. But it's funny because you talk about when you brought up the UFC thing, because I don't think I heard that and kind of just forgot it, or I didn't. It's my first time hearing about Shane trying to buy the UFC, which is definitely interesting. But thinking about just how often the company has cut off their own nose to spite their face, how they treated Tanner that have tried to gotten themselves over, try to get themselves over. I wonder if he would have purchased UFC, like if it was something he came up with. You know what I'm saying? Like if it was like an idea or something. Because again, like I don't know what it is. Like it wasn't his thing. So if he takes it and it wins, he can't give himself full credit for it.
There's a possibility that if Vince McMahon had come up with a UFC idea, that he would have capitalized off of buying it and incorporating it into his idea. But he did kind of do that. He created Brawl for All, which was bad. Him and Vince Russo, so bad. Like when you talk and hear about the WWE, you when you get past the fans' ire of you're just saying that because you're an AEW fanboy. When you actually listen to people, even people who like Vince McMahon and think he's a good boss, they all say the same thing. He's ignorant, arrogant, closed-minded. He books for himself. He doesn't care about the audience, and he doesn't have a long-term plan. He's literally... He's the only reason he's successful is because wrestling fans, maybe more than even sci-fi fans, wrestling fans are habitual with the thing they grew up on more than anyone.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And if it wasn't for that, Vince McMahon and the WWE would cease to exist.
Yeah. Yeah, and even more to that point about the UFC, it really makes the whole concept of it worse, because think about it, if he like scoffed at the idea of the UFC because the Brawl for All didn't work, you take into account the fact that one of the main reasons why it didn't work is because none of those poor chaps were actual fighters. like legitimate professionals. So he literally scoffed at the idea, like if this didn't work with people who didn't know how to fight, it can't work with people who actually know what they're doing. That speaks to a high level of ignorance.
Yeah. I mean, think about the fact that guys like Dan Severn, Steve Blackman, Ken Shamrock. I think Dan Severn actually won one fight, but like Shamrock and Blackman didn't want any part of it because they knew it was going to be a clusterfuck. Now, if you put those guys in there and maybe gotten like a Bass Rutten at the time, Kevin Randleman you brought in, because at the time UFC didn't have any guaranteed contracts, you could do that kind of thing. Maybe bring in someone from Pride at the time and throw in like a guy like Bart Gunn or Steve Dr. Death who had wrestling experience. Bart Gunn was just a heavy thrower, and even Butterbean thought that Bart Gunn had a chance to beat him. You throw in those kinds of guys. Maybe the tournament turns out differently. Maybe you get rid of the boxing gloves and go with taped fists, or you go with UFC gloves or Pride gloves at the time, because I don't know if the UFC had gloves in. I think they did. I think they had gloves in '98. I'll double check. But like Pride had gloves at the time, so like have some type of MMA fingerless gloves and do it that way. Who knows? Maybe the WWE is no longer a pro wrestling company. Maybe it transforms into a shoot fight company. Maybe it becomes like Shudo or Pancrase. I was going to say Peruso. I'm like, nope, that's not right. It's Pancrase. Who knows what the future would look like? But, Shane McMahon is a better businessman than his sister and father ever were. Shane McMahon wanted to buy the UFC because he saw potential in it. He invested in an Asian streaming service that made him rich. He's got a good eye for things. But Vince is very monosyllabic, and he doesn't really want to extend past beyond what he thinks is the way to go. And I think the problem is there are rumors that the WWE could be bought, and I don't think these rumors are impossible to believe. I don't know if these specific rumors are accurate, but the idea that Disney or some major conglomerate would buy out the WWE holdings and purchase the company is a real thing. They are a 365 touring company with major TV outlet support and huge revenue off of merchandising. If you're some major conglomerate that doesn't care about monopolizing an industry, because the WWE doesn't, you would absolutely look at that company. And considering that the board of trustees and directors and shareholders don't trust McMahon, and by the by, Vince is going to get sued, and he's not going to win this one because he blatantly and with intent defrauded investors. He's going to lose a court case, and he might even see prison time because of insider trading. But to each their own. The WWE could be in a real bad way. I wouldn't be surprised I'm not predicting it. I am saying specifically, I wouldn't be surprised if in 2 to 3 years the WWE was either under someone else's control outside of the McMahons, or was no longer an entity at all because of lawsuits that crippled the company. The day of reckoning is here, Marcus.
Yeah, and a lot of it, in terms of reckoning with this company, has little to do with the virus. Ironically enough.
Well, fun fact. Sorry, I was drinking something. Fun fact, McMahon is, I believe, Irish. And if you take his name and you put it into Old Gaelic, it actually spells out COVID. God, I'm coming up with the worst jokes tonight.
I want that to be true so bad.
I forgot what show it was. Someone pranked somebody and made him believe that, it was Community. Abed and Troy are like the best friends of the show, and Abed is kind of like almost a little bit robotic in his kind of movements and whatnot, and Troy's very likable, but he's very childish in a lot of ways, but like a good child, just like a childlike wonder. And Abed drew a picture of him on a wall in front of like a tunnel, and he hid behind a trash can. When Troy walked by, Abed's like, "Hey Troy, I drew a painting on the wall, and I was able to do it. I ran into the painting, Troy. It's real, just like in the cartoons. You can do it." And then Troy's like, "Really?" And Abed's like, "Yeah, come join me." And Troy starts to wind up like he's going to run into the wall to join him. And then Abed pops in and goes, wait, don't do it. I was joking with you. And Troy's like, "I knew that." And he got really sad and walked away. And Abed goes, I may have done some real damage there. That's how I feel right now, Marcus, when you said I wish that to be true about Vince McMahon's Gaelic name being COVID. I feel like I've done this. I feel like I've done some damage on that one. I apologize. Got your hopes up. Speaking of getting your hopes up, that's kind of how it feels to be a WWE wrestler these days. Because if you're expecting anything good, you're getting your hopes up. And gotta love Lacey Evans. She's like, well, you gotta save for a rainy day. That's what happens when you work for the WWE. And I'm just thinking to myself, wow, you're callous. Not Don Callis. Yeah, she just said that. I saw the article yesterday. She said essentially that while she feels bad for her released colleagues, you got to save for a rainy day. And I'm just like, wow. You know the WWE sending out emails saying, hey, you gotta defend the company. Because otherwise I'd be like, hey, this is some horse shit. WWE still made a profit this month and my friends got fired. How is that for shit-tastic? Oh, and by the by, they're making Roman Reigns more over than ever before by making him erased from history. If and when he finally comes back, he's going to have a lot of fan support.
It's hilarious, the trajectory of this whole thing. Like it's like anti-full circle because they shoved him down those fans and like the man had to literally come into like a near life altering a health crisis to get some support on his side besides just the outright people who want him to perish or whatever. And now he's actually about to get the fanfare that they wanted because he basically flipped him off.
Yeah. Now I would say this is some really great booking from Vince McMahon, but we've seen him time and time before be wholly incompetent at what the fans would want or expect or how to get people over anymore. You know, his one idea was, let's have Stone Cold and me feud. And then everything else was suggested by someone else. But this is if you're being cynical, this could be a really great Vince McMahon idea. We're going to erase him from history and say that he was a coward. And when he comes back, the fans will totally be in his back pocket and he'll finally be the star we want him to be. But they don't have the foresight for that. They're not even playing checkers anymore. You know what they're playing? They're playing Kurt Plunk.
Hilarious, Kurt Plunk, hilarious. Yeah, they are kind of playing.
The only difference is instead of taking out the straws, they're trying to put them back in as much as possible, but it's still not working.
What's that? Price is Right game? They're playing, and they're doing this with their. I mean, they've always done this, feel like creatively, but specifically with the people that they can't get to show up at this point, they're playing Plinko.
Plinko. They're also playing Guess Who.
Like, okay, let's use the Apollo cruise ship, and let's see if he lands on relevancy.
So here's how Apollo Crews got his push. You ready? I can't prove this, but this is 100% how it happened. Vince was in the backstage area one day, and he pointed at Apollo and goes, "You're winning tonight." And he goes out there, and then Vince looks at Kevin Dunn. Did Lashley lose weight? And everyone's just too afraid to say that Apollo Crews isn't Bobby Lashley. And do you think this is that far fetched? Yeah, you're gonna sit there and go, Vince McMahon's not that naive. Vince McMahon legitimately thought that Zack Ryder and Kurt Hawkins were twins.
Oh, what was the classic thing he said in that meeting? Mark Henry said something. He said, "Oh, thank you, Shelton." No, somebody said.
All right, listen. Sometimes people do look like other people. This is just one of the, like, you look at Billy Kay and Peyton Royce or whatever their names are, they kind of look similar. You look at Zack Ryder and Kurt Hawkins, okay. You could probably say, like, one black person kind of like who Mark Henry with a shaved head looks like Rick Ross. Fair enough. Sometimes they just look similar to one another. Doesn't matter what race, it just happens. But you don't even know the size of someone. Like, when you look at Mark Henry and you think, yeah, that could reasonably be Shelton Benjamin. Shelton, who's a good 100 pounds lighter and, has significantly less hair and has more of an oblong-shaped head instead of Mark Henry's more, shall we say, peanut-like head. Yeah, that's going to be racist. Like, there's no way around that. That's kind of racist as fuck. That's like saying, thank you, Leo, to the Big Show. Like, what?
Thank you, Leo.
How can you get that from that? Like, I don't know. Like, you see Stone Cold Steve Austin and Barry Windham next to each other in 1993. Yeah, you can say Stone Cold's Barry and Barry's Stone Cold because they both had long, stringy blonde hair. Maybe you don't see faces that great, and you just see a little coat D and a little hair. Okay, fair enough. But like, damn, to get that one wrong, that's racist.
Yeah, that didn't age well. I mean, and speaking of speaking of freaking Lashley, I don't know if you guys saw this or not.
Jeez. No, what's this? We're going to see this together, people. Oh. Okay. Let's try this one. Okay. So, let's see. The wildest part of this for me is how Lashley looks like he has an internal crisis when the guy suggests 7 more years of being in WWE. We're not going to play the audio, but I just want to see that face. Jason Solomon's response is great. I don't even need to know. It's about at the 8-second mark that he says it. I don't even need to know that he said it. The look on his face. His eyes are wide as hell. Like he's getting pulled over in Tunisia. And like, she's just like, I'm going to kill myself before that happens.
Oh, God. I just had to show you that. That was priceless, man. Like,
that's fantastic. We're going to listen to the clip and see if that's
7 more years probably out of him in the WWE. 7. Got to get that.
Lashley even says 7. He's not vibing with that at all. Oh my God. I know why he went back. Like, you don't need to be some type of like epidemiologist to figure this one out. Lashley went back because he thought he was going to get Lesnar. And that would have been money. I actually gave up a career in Bellator for that WWE nonsense.
As you were laughing, I just saw the Anthem out doing the Hulk Hogan here, the Hulk Hogan thing.
Wait, Anthem's doing what?
I said, as you was laughing at it, I just saw the Anthem owl in my head doing the Hulk Hogan ear thing.
Yeah. Okay.
My friend was playing in the back.
What you gonna do, brother, when your contract expires? So, funny enough, the North actually dropped a Kurt Angle reference. Ethan's like, all right, so who do you want to face all time, Josh? And Josh's like, Kurt Angle. And Ethan's like, dude, it's 90 days haven't even expired yet. And I'm just like, ha ha, jokes.
I remember when he was with who that was, Seidel he was with.
Yep.
Then he had that moment with RVD when RVD first came back. Now he's with Josh. Like he's not. I don't think he gets enough credit for the promos he's been putting out.
Oh, Paige is tremendously creative, and not just as a speaker, but like this, like his entire segment tonight on Impact was great. My only knock would be like, he had all these like mannequins set up in the audience. Well, he had 3. I would have gone with as many as I could, or like started stuffing like pillows into shirts and shit just to make it look like there's an audience there, even if it's like action figures and like. I would have gone all out with trying to make the audience look as fucking fake as possible, but as stuffed as possible. So I think that's like my one gripe. But his segment tonight was fantastic. What were the tag teams called that he faced? The Creeps.
I gotta watch it, but those two have been. Putting the belts on them is one of the best decisions they've made, and the fact that, and I haven't even watched the show, I just seen some of those clips from the Impact Twitter. But Moose, oh man, Moose is on right now.
Yep, it's been really good to watch wrestling I enjoy again. But I'm also watching wrestling I don't enjoy. I watched the XWF last night. They released 3 episodes a while back, and you can find them on YouTube, and I watched all 3 of them. I'm actually going to do a write-up on those eventually. Because there was actually some potential there. Like, they had a good crop of young talent. You know, like Josh Matthews.
who we can only cheer for now when his wife's next to him crapping all over him.
Hey, Josh Matthews is a pinfall victory over AJ Styles, man.
Yeah, I saw you asking for that footage. I was like, Chad, you know I love you, bro, but come on, man. Come on. I'm gonna freak out. Oh, man. That's like asking for what's the that's like asking for the whole Katie Vick angle in 4K. What you don't.
I mean, if you can get that on Impact Plus 2, I'm all for it. Sometimes I like diving into the terrible wrestling because, like, there's that aspect of me, like, I like fixing the broken, which explains all of my dating choices. The more broken, the prettier they are. But, like, I see the same thing in wrestling. Like, I want to see, like, a really bad angle and see if there was something I could do with the talent there to make it better. I don't know if I can, but I'm going to try. So when I watch, like, the XWF, yeah, I'm looking for something specific. But, yeah, I want that terrible wrestling. Give me that XWF and that WWA, man. Woo! Maybe that's what we'll do. Maybe next week I'll make you watch the World Wrestling All-Stars first pay-per-view.
Better than anything I watched last night with Raw. But yeah, this is what I wanted to ask you about Raw. Like, how much of it, because you mentioned about just the reason why they still got people watching is because of the wrestling fandoms in there. They Star Wars. They're now moving off what they've always liked.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it's this whole COVID thing is creating a very interesting conflict in a lot of these sicko fans that we run into on Twitter all the time. Because the audience is no longer there, they have no choice but to see just how much the creative sucks. and they pad it out with the audience noise. But they still got their head securely up the company's ass. So what they do, they blame it on the lack of audience as the reason why the show is sucking, much like the company is doing. You know they're suffering behind the scenes because what they don't want to do is give AEW any credit for some of the creative things that they've done, whether it be grabbing Matt Hardy and leaning into the brokenness of creating the Bubbly Bunch as actual creative alternatives while this whole thing is going on, because that's actually what you were supposed to do, even though it would be better if they just weren't shooting. But yeah, I would imagine a lot of these folks are suffering right now. You know, unless you ask Seth Rollins, then, you know, that meme of everything in the background burning. No, everything's fine. It's fine. It's fine.
The dog sitting there in the middle of the fiery house. This is fine.
We're good. All good.
Has AEW been putting out a good product? Should I get back into it, give it a second chance?
Yeah, I think it's been fairly decent. Like I said, I mean, look, the non-audience hurts both shows. We know what it means to wrestling, but I think they've been more, if nothing else, they've been more creative in coming up with alternative stuff. Like they had the Bucks do a whole little angle when they face each other, and this is at their house, their compound. Like you really see how much money these guys have, what they've done with all the money that they've had when you see their whole setup at their home. But I just feel like they're just taking more steps to be creative. Obviously, we're going to see what WWE is going to do with the whole climb the corporate ladder Money in the Bank gimmick this Sunday. But they're not doing a whole lot of outside of, you know, just really sticking people out there who we don't normally see and getting more jobbers on the show. But, you know, we know that's just guys that's trying to work regardless. So, yeah, I mean, I think you can check in and you know, if you can, like I said, I know your schedule is extremely full between the writing and the catching up on whatever you can at the moment. But yeah, I mean, not that it takes much to get better than Raw, but you know, I think they're doing a decent job.
Well, I don't think the lack of crowds is hurting the quality of shows. I think you're missing, like, it's like getting ice cream.
Yeah.
You like ice cream. But the crowd's like the chocolate syrup topping. I like the chocolate syrup topping.
Yeah.
But even without it, it's still ice cream. And that's kind of how I feel. Like, all right, I would rather there be crowds because it just works better with crowds. But it's still good. Like, I enjoyed tonight's Impact up until the main event. Like, Chris Bay and Ace Austin and Willie Mack, all right. But, like, as the main event, I don't know. Like, the Moose stuff was so good. And the Elgin and Shamrock and Callahan stuff was so good that I feel like we finished with the wrong thing. But that's more like an ordering situation, not so much a creativity or a quality situation. But, like, MLW's been fantastic. But they're out of freshly taped content, so now they're going to be doing a digital show. So I'm going to be interested to see how MLW does this digital cast that they're doing. And NWA is doing their first new show in God knows how long next week, I think.
Yeah, I mean, and I'm looking forward to, and I forgot the exact date, but I do think it's this month. The whole we're getting Super Purr this month.
Yeah, I thought it was. I thought I saw that was going to be next week.
Yeah, you might be right on that. But yeah, I mean, again, there's no denying what the crowd means to these shows. I mean, wrestling in itself is so hand in hand with that crowd reaction and just what that does for the overall art form of it. But I mean, like, look at NWA. They could really do like upcoming shows about just character profiles and like video package on their crew, because they actually have, of maybe if they got 30 people on the roster, at least 25 of them are worth a damn to sit through and watch a whole character tape on, kind of like what they did with Camille.
Mm-hmm.
You can't say that about them. You don't give a damn about Jinder or Apollo or Ricochet or even my boy Said. You don't care.
Why you naming all the non-white guys, Marcus? Huh? You're racist.
Damn it, he got me.
Marcus is as black as coal, people, just for people who don't understand what I'm doing. Like, if anyone's going to be racist against minorities, it ain't going to be Marcus, because, he is one. I was hoping, man, I was hoping that you wouldn't name a white dude, because I wanted to hit you with that so good.
Because I thought about, like, wait a minute, what about Humberto? Oh, damn it.
Humberto. He's Mexican. You could have said Chad Gable. He's white.
Haven't seen him.
Oh, no, that's even worse. So you made a comment about the lack of fans, and I think one of the things I love most about wrestling is, in fact, empty arena matches. Two of the better ones happened in 2009 and 2010, I think, in TNA, when it was TNA.
Yep.
The Sting and Angle, and then the Young Bucks and the Machine Guns. So, like, you can do empty arena stuff. I don't think that's a big deal. But as far as, like, interesting, creative stuff, I think one of the things that I would love to see is, like, you have someone like Zicky Dice, who used to be a lead guitarist, I think, for a rock band. That's a great fucking avenue to go down. Him and what's his name? Andy Williams from AEW, the Blade or the Butcher. I think he's the Butcher. The Butcher. Like, those dudes were in rock bands. Do profiles on them. Like, that'd be huge. I also had this realization, and then I'll talk about this, and we can have a quick little discussion, then we'll get to Money in the Bank. A lot of pro wrestling could be kind of surmised the same way you surmise the music industry. And I watch this channel. It's a really damn good channel. It's called the Punk Rock MBA. The guy who does it has been, like, in the music industry at various points in his life, and he talks about how certain bands get over, why they get over, why they fall apart, what happened to certain genres. And, the one thing that he always iterates is, music, especially in rock, it has such a varied scope of different time periods, and so many people often try to glom on to a time period instead of creating their own identity. And it's the ones who glom on that often get kind of forgotten about. And eventually, when the industry moves on to the next hotness, if you will, to take a Will Smith 1996 quote, the new hotness, those bands often get left behind because they are seen as kind of just copycats. But the progenitors end up evolving and staying around and moving on. And when you look at pro wrestling, the same thing can be said. Like, eventually styles change and you need to evolve. I think part of the problem with the modern wrestling product is that the big flips and the indie style has saturated so much of wrestling that fans no longer care about guys who are really good doing it. Like Ricochet, he's fantastic, one of the best in the world. Will Ospreay, one of the best in the world. But Will Ospreay is getting more over now with him doing less aerial work and more submission work. Yet Ricochet's still doing the old flippies, and it must be Mondays, and no one gives a fuck because he's about as charismatic as a stone. And I think part of the problem is wrestling needs to evolve and move on past what they're doing currently. And I think that's one of the reasons why AEW, MLW, and Impact are starting to find their own fan bases outside of one another because they're all doing things differently. AEW is kind of doing pro wrestling, but kind of like how WWE does it, but differently by listening to the fans and having coherent storylines that call back to previous moments. MLW is booking themselves more like a pro fighting federation with weight classes and divisions. And Impact's kind of harken back to the old late 90s stylings of not car crash TV, but like we're going to go a little out there at times and it's just going to be a thing. And when you look at the leading indicator of what most promotions are doing, it's stemming from Impact still. You know, from the cinematic stuff, which started at Impact, to now a lot more intergender stuff, which started. And that started but rose to prominence in Impact. The Knockouts division, the return of tag team wrestling, those are all Impact staples, and you're starting to see them now in other promotions going forward. And I think wrestling needs to continue to push forward, but I also think wrestlers specifically need to stop trying to be one another. You know, the days of going, well, so what if so-and-so took so-and-so's finisher, need to end. You need to realize that when you're stealing someone else's moves, and yes, it's stealing, you're hurting not just that person's ability to make money, but your own. And I don't think people are cognitively aware of that. They think that it doesn't matter, but if you watch Ricochet do what does he do? A 720? I guess 720 senton?
630.
630 senton. You see Ricochet doing a 630 senton every time. It's like, oh, cool. But then you start seeing 9 other dudes do a 630 senton, and now you're seeing that all over YouTube, and it's like, or Twitter, it's like, oh, okay, Ricochet's move's no longer that impressive. It's like the idea of jumping off something. When Angelico did it back in 2016 or whenever it was, like, that was fucking crazy. But now you're seeing a clip of Luke Hawk's son just jumping off of a goddamn balcony in a mall. There's not even a context to it. There's no story for that. He just does it, and everyone's like, oh, that's so crazy. But now you're going to be so desensitized to that idea that when it happens again, it's not going to be as impactful to a majority of wrestling fans because we're seeing it taken out of context and done randomly now. And that's the same thing with moves. Like, wrestling fans have really devalued the idea of story in wrestling and how valuable and needed it is to have a lasting impact. And anyone can throw a sidekick. But Shawn Michaels telling Ric Flair he loves him before he does it in what's supposed to be Ric Flair's last match adds to the moment. So you can have all the stunts and gimmicks and spots you want. But if you don't have heart, you're not going to have a fucking story, man. And I think wrestling fans need to get past this idea of, shitting on what was in terms of ideas and rules in wrestling. Now, I'm not saying that everything from 1960 works. Certainly having desegregated locker rooms is not a bad idea. Certainly having women on your card is not a bad idea. Not slapping the shit out of reporters for asking you questions is not that shouldn't be allowed. You should not be slapping the shit out of reporters. Bullying one another shouldn't be allowed. But having rules in place in the locker room that you have to follow, respecting the people on your roster and not stealing moves from them should be enforced, and holding people accountable for their actions and not just saying, well, who the fuck cares? As a journalist, needs to go away. Like, we need to return to some semblance of the way it was, because the way it's going is not conducive for wrestling health. The same, maybe million fans in America is keeping the industry alive. I don't think people get that. We're not making new fans. We're just losing a lot more money. And part of that's because, we are letting wrestlers copy one another to the point where there's no reason to care about certain guys.
Yeah, it's almost indistinguishable at times, specifically when you got shows where everybody, it's done just 10 or 11 matches and everybody's doing a dive
Yep.
or a freaking Canadian destroyer and or super kick
Yep.
and or spear, and it's like it's indistinguishable besides the looks, besides like maybe physical aesthetics, giants or like swoggle sized people or stuff like that, or somebody that stand out like a Rosemary or something like that. Everything kind of just blends, and you're right. And on that last point, just going back to what you were saying about the um, not surviving off of what we've always had in terms of fan base. That goes back to last week what we talked about when the guy made the statement. I like. Um, what was the statement he made on Twitter? I like the people who don't like wrestling. That you can stay out. Or
Yeah.
something.
Yeah. He said something to the effect like, I like that wrestling isn't for everybody. That guy needs to not have an opinion. Wrestling should be for everybody. Wrestling needs to be for everybody. But the thing is because of the internet age, Marcus, I think one of the biggest issues is that things that wouldn't have been so prevalent in the early 90s, mid 90s, late 90s, even the early to mid 2000s, are now everywhere within the wrestling fandom. So when it would have been kind of ignored or not as prevalent, things that are becoming problematic in a big way, like doing the same moves over and over again, doing the same spots over and over again, not booking to make yourself stand out, but booking to make yourself, trendy. You can't book yourself to be trendy in wrestling. You got to book yourself to be different. You got to book yourself to be a person. But every so often, and not every so often, but most always nowadays, everyone's booking themselves to be the next trendy thing. How many people are trying to do that 80s vibe gimmick where they're, throwback douchey, like Joey Janela with the fucking sunglasses, you got Zicky Dice with the bleached hair, and they're just a dime a dozen at this point with people trying to kind of parlay that, grungier 80s, unappealing aesthetic on people. Even what's his name in Impact?
Oh, you talk about
Johnny Swinger.
Yeah, Johnny Swinger.
Even Johnny Swinger's doing it.
I was thinking about the Rizat man. I was going to call him the Rizat
man. But at least Swinger's doing it with personality. Swinger's playing a character. Joey Janela is just gone from existence, thank God. Signing with AEW killed his career, and he's gotten him off TV for me, and I'm just like, yeah. But, that's such a trendy thing to do nowadays, is to be that kind of, like, unapologetic 80s douchebag. And it's not really something that I think works. Like, the gimmicks themselves work, yes, but I don't think copying one another to such a degree works. Eventually, you're not going to just be out of the rotation, so to speak, but you're going to bring everyone else down who is doing it with you. So I think it's always a good idea to try to be as different as possible and to try to have your own unique look to such a degree that you're not just borrowing from, a trend. Being trendy is fleeting. Being original, that'll keep you around forever. And I don't think there's enough people who know how to be original or are good enough to be original to really have this situation where we're not talking about, how damaging stealing from one another is in the industry. You got to find a way to make yourself stand out without bringing everyone else down. But I don't know if wrestling, at least in its current form, can handle that because too many people don't realize the damages of ripping off someone else to make yourself get over. Yeah, you'll get over for a day or two, but you're going to end up killing that gimmick and the person you're stealing it from. Is it worth it? No. But you got enough people like defending it, so, here we are. It's going to be interesting to see what the wrestling industry looks like when things finally calm down. I would not be surprised if the boom that we were having in the indies was done. I hope it's not, but I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah, you're not wrong. I mean, because I do think it's going to be a period where we're going to see an uptick and stuff because I think there's a lot of people just going to want to get back to some semblance of normalcy when it comes to public camaraderie and just being around people in general, even if it is strangers. But we also got to think that with attendance, the expectation that comes with large attendance is large amounts of funds. But people have to regulate their funds again. and that may take however long. So you might have people that want to come and want to do a bunch of stuff, but they have to completely reorganize their finances and what that looks like. Because for the average person, stuff like independent wrestling shows and or pay-per-views and stuff, oftentimes is budgeted into their already minuscule budget. So or incorporated into their already budget. So it's definitely gonna be interesting seeing like if the entertainment and the entertained can meet in the middle on that from across the industry, really.
Yeah. The problem is though, how many of these smaller industries not industry, but these smaller promotions are even going to be able to survive? Starting up again. Like that's the thing that I think is going to be really interesting is how many of these industries are going to be or promotions are going to be around come the next wave of fan attended shows. Like I'm concerned that a lot of these promoters and owners, they're going to be hit so hard by this shutdown, which granted it's one of those casualties that I'm okay with. If you lose your business, I'd rather you lose your business than you lose your family due to the illness. So like it's one of those things that I'm completely fine with because there's far worse alternatives. But there's going to be promotions that don't open back up, and I don't think they're going to be covered under the small business stimulus. So I don't know how many promotions are going to be there to book guys and how many guys are going to go unbooked. Now, not everyone wrestles full time anymore, but I'd say there's still a good 40% of the industry that does it full time. They're going to be hurt real bad, and that worries me. So
yeah, it's just interesting because when you look at stuff like that, and then you think about wrestlers like Braun Strowman who have made those stupid statements about discrediting the indies basically, and trying to I guess excuse it with the way he had to come in, but it's a completely different thing, and he kind of talked out of the side of his head on that. And then you look at somebody like Lacey Evans who was very unladylike in that particular statement, from my personal opinion, saying people should budget. Like, you don't know people's finances.
mm-hmm.
Or how things are set up. People may have far more overhead than incoming, and that's with more than the average person would make in a wrestling company. You don't know. You don't know if they're taking care of a whole bunch of people besides the people in their house. You just don't know. So to kind of stick yourself out on a limb like that, and it's not like she's sticking her neck out and pulling a Rusev and paying workers who may have got furloughed or laid off. So really not you just trying to be heard and make some type of smart ass statement. It really just makes you look dumber than a lot of people already probably thought you were.
Yeah, you're not wrong. So let's talk about Money in the Bank real fast. Fatal 4-way tag team match for the SmackDown tag titles. The New Day versus Miz and Morrison versus the Forgotten Sons. Because apparently they got called up. And the Lucha House Party. Marcus, you got any selections on this one?
We should be past the point where the strap's on New Day, but between the New Day, Lucha House Party, and the Forgotten Sons, I'm sticking with my community.
I don't know if we're past that point, honestly. I don't think there's ever a point when you should be past putting titles on someone. I do think they needed an extended break, however.
Yeah.
They've won the tag team titles 8 times. That sounds light. Only 8? 6 SmackDown, 2 Raw. Only 8. Okay. That was going to be more. But I would give them like a year or two where they're not around the title scene. Because that's kind of what happened with like Harlem Heat in WCW. They were always around the title scene for like 6 years and fans got bored of it. They took them away from the titles for a good year and a half, 2 years, and then reunited them in 1999. Fans were all hot for it again. Just give them a time and then break them, not break them apart or break them down, but like give them a break from the title scene and just kind of let them be and do their thing and come back to them in a year or two. Let them do some comedy stuff over the next 18 months. Let them do some singles feuds. Then you can bring them back together for another tag team run. Miz and John Morrison, I wouldn't mind seeing them get the belts back. Lucha House Party, nope. I'm going to go with the Forgotten Sons, just because I don't expect them to do anything, and considering they're one of the least impactful call-ups since NXT opened. I think they're going to be given a big push because Vince McMahon doesn't know what the fuck he's doing. We got Drew McIntyre versus Seth Rollins for the WWE Championship. I'm going to go with Seth Rollins. Not Seth Rollins. Drew McIntyre I'm going with because I don't think they're going back to Seth Rollins ever again for the title. At least they shouldn't. I hope they don't. They probably will, just not Sunday.
Yeah, same here. And even though I know you're not either one of his biggest fans, I'm going to go with Drew.
He's the big Scottish guy with the big claymore and the stuff. Arr. Kevin Nash invented it first. I'm not even kidding. Kevin Nash hit a claymore on Scott Steiner in August of 2000. It happened. It's on tape. Bayley versus Tamina. What? You want to hear the best part? This doesn't make any goddamn sense, so I'm picking Tamina to win.
No, I'm gonna go out on that limb too. For nothing else than the victories on SmackDown lately have made no damn sense. But that's basically the MO SmackDown's been running with. It seems like that for a while now. But the likes of, and we're gonna get to it, the likes of seeing Tamina, Dana Brooke, Carmella, some others get multiple victories over people who shouldn't be able to even scoff at is ridiculous. But again, that's the booking, and if they want to drop it on Tamina, it'll be something nobody saw coming. So
Bray versus Braun. I'm going with Braun, but I don't give a fuck about this match. It's gonna be terrible. It's gonna be bad.
Yeah, just I wish no good things for that character of Braun Strowman. So
are you picking Bray?
Yeah.
Okay. I think they should do the Money in the Bank matches together. Not one match, but have them exist at the same time.
No, they actually are doing it at the same time. They're gonna be happening at the same time.
It's gonna be a clusterfuck. I'm so into this. Yes. I'm so excited. And I just can't hide it. I want to see them line up in front of the elevators, right? And have the cameras on them. Don't do it cinematically speaking. Just do it like a wrestling match. Have the cameramen in certain areas and actually acknowledge that, hey, there's where the cameramen's are going to be. And then just have them rush towards the elevators and have them fight on the elevators all the way up to the roof.
Oh man, but then that'll be 2 scoops of the Edge Orton match, but with ladders.
Right. So it's gonna be terrible. That's why I want to see it. All right. So I can't believe they're doing this at the same time. That's so fucking stupid. Oh God! Don't listen to my ideas. What the fuck are you doing? Men's Money in the Bank: Daniel Bryan, Rey Mysterio, Aleister Black, King Corbin, Otis, and AJ Styles. I'm going to say this one more time. The Money in the Bank does not make new stars. The Money in the Bank is a bad gimmick and has never elevated a star in its entire existence. It's been on stars who were elevated, but it's never elevated a star. In fact, I would argue that Edge never became the draw he was supposed to be because of how he went about beating John Cena. If you had booked Edge to win at WrestleMania 22, he would have been a much bigger deal in that first couple of years. Because Edge is loved, he's beloved, he's respected. But I don't remember him being ever a success outside of wrestling during his tenure. He retired and landed on... What was that show on Sci-Fi? I can't fucking remember.
Haven.
Yeah, Haven. It was all right. It was a decent show. It had its moments. But, Edge wasn't burning up the big screen. He wasn't getting big promotional deals. He was never that big of a deal outside of the main hardcore fan base. And that's not going to, people aren't going to like hearing that. It's true. You weren't seeing him on a lot of merchandise. You weren't seeing him, postered all over the place. Well, he was a heel. Yeah, out of necessity. Because if he could draw, he would have been a face.
It was allowed him, I guess, turn up even more so on the hit and run aspect that naturally comes with being a smarmy heel like he was.
Mm-hmm.
Because I mean, like you said, a real big thing that came out of that was they created the moniker of being an ultimate opportunist. Because didn't he do that like twice with the Money in the
Yeah,
Bank?
yeah, because Kennedy, Mr. Anderson, ended up having to forfeit his opportunity with the
Yeah.
briefcase.
Then he got Taker with it. Yeah. So, um, yeah, I mean, it did the ultimate opportunity. Like you said, I think when you said it was on stars that got elevated, maybe that line is slightly blurred um, with the Dolph cash in.
Well,
Maybe.
well, let me ask you this: before he won that briefcase, did you think he was a world title opportunist? Because I did.
Dolph.
Yeah, I did. I don't think the briefcase elevated him. I think he won it because he was elevated. When you win something like that, it should propel you. It should be on a guy like Apollo or Gable. Or I only mention those two because I actually am fans of them. It should be on someone who will actually benefit from it, who can take the next step up, not give it to the guy who's already about to do it. Like imagine if they had done this with Shawn Michaels before his Iron Man match with Bret Hart.
Yeah.
I don't think it would have had the same impact on Shawn Michaels that winning an Iron Man match did. Fans, even though we're all in the know, are still aware when something is unearned, storyline wise. We talk about it all the time with non-wrestling entities, plot holes and Mary Sue's and Gary Stu's and all that. We don't like it. Star Wars failed as a franchise in the modern era because it tried to force things that just didn't make any fucking sense. And I think the idea of you being able to cheat and then somehow being a star, that no longer works. If you want to get someone over to a degree, you could do it, but if you want to get someone over as a star, it's not going to work. Think about CM Punk. It took them 4 more years to get CM Punk to be a draw. Like what, 2011, 2012, he was finally making money as a headliner because he could actually headline because that stink of his bad cash-in and title reign was over. If
Yeah.
CM Punk had beaten someone of legitimacy for that belt cleanly instead of cashing in on Edge, he would have been a much bigger deal. But instead, Vince wanted the shock and awe. Oh my God, he's cashing in on Raw. Oh my God. That's why Cena and Batista were so beloved for so long because they were the last real stars that were made from the authentic winning the belt at the big show way.
Yeah.
Edge struggled, Rob Van Dam struggled, CM Punk struggled. Who came after CM Punk? Jack Swagger. Like the slew of guys whose run and title opportunities fell apart by winning the Money in the Bank briefcase or failed to get where they needed to be from the briefcase is long and established, my friend.
And that, I mean, it's weird too because I was thinking about it's like when you mention guys like Chad Gable and Apollo Crews, and like even guys like Ricochet, like we know they're uber talented, but for the most part, we'd always same thing comes like you talking about said, they don't really have a character,
Mm-hmm.
not one that's deeply defined. So I mean, obviously this is us armchair quarterbacking, but looking at a lot of those guys who I guess got more notoriety post fact, a lot of those guys had established personalities and traits like a Edge, like a Orton and stuff like that. Um, how much run do you think somebody like an Apollo Crews can get out of something like that when they already don't really have an established character and he would be going into that kind of leaning heavily on the persona of the briefcase guy?
Well, I think he would have a very bad run. And here's why. CM Punk, while he did have a character, he didn't have the established legacy to be a star. So even when he won it the first time, it really wasn't that impactful despite his big fan base. Jack Swagger is probably the most obvious version of Chad Gable and Apollo Crews that we can point to, and he had a terrible title run. Kane, I don't know if I count him so much because of the fact that he was already established when he won it. I think if you want to do the Money in the Bank briefcase, it should be for guys like Kane. But even Kane's run was kind of seen as lacking because of the fact that when you present someone as this big monster and you have them kind of cheat, which is what the Money in the Bank briefcase allows you to do. You take an opportunity that would otherwise be described as cheating. And then you take that person who's now a cheater and you put him against The Undertaker. That feud, while good, could have been a lot better if they had painted Kane in a better light. The Miz's title run was absolute garbage. So was Alberto Del Rio's. Daniel Bryan's first title run was atrocious. Like, think about Daniel Bryan today. One of the few legitimate draws the company has. And they gave him one of the worst title runs of all time. And it shouldn't have been. You know, if you had booked Daniel Bryan versus Mark Henry going into WrestleMania, 28 that year in Miami? Holy shit, Marcus, that would have been huge. That would have been huge. Daniel Bryan could have made Mark Henry tap after almost a year's champion. You give Mark Henry a great finale to his title run, and you make a new star out of it. Like, it's not rocket science to do this. I don't know why Vince McMahon and WWE can't do it. You know, John Cena doesn't count. Dolph Ziggler was pretty over, but he still didn't have a character. Like, what was Dolph Ziggler's character when he won the belt? He was the guy that shook his ass. That was it. He dyed his hair blonde. Woohoo! What a gimmick. Randy Orton was already established. Damian Sandow lost. That's funny. Seth Rollins' first title run was abysmal. You know, he was so bad, people were wanting a 57, 58-year-old Sting to beat him. That's how bad he was. Now, granted, I root for Sting regardless, so I don't count. But his run was real bad. Marcus, do you remember how bad Seth Rollins' first run with the belt was? I mean, it hasn't gotten better for him. But it certainly didn't make him a star.
No, and a lot of the weight of that came off of what was already an overexposed thing, which was the authority angle.
Yep. Then you had Sheamus, who was never a big draw. He won it. Dean Ambrose, who's showing he can be a draw. He's very successful in New Japan and AEW, but you know his first title run was garbage. Baron Corbin lost, which is fantastic. Braun Strowman never cashed his in. Brock Lesnar doesn't count because he's already a draw. And then you look at the women. Carmella never became a draw. Alexa Bliss, for I don't know how many women can actually say they're a draw. I would say maybe Becky. Maybe. Like, you could put Becky in the main event and probably get 7,000 to 8,000 people to show up for her alone. Maybe. Maybe. I wouldn't say that for Alexa Bliss, despite the fact I'm a much bigger Bliss fan than I am Becky. Bayley certainly isn't a headliner. If you put Bayley in the main event, I'm going home early. And I think that's the case for a lot of people. Hell, I'm going home early for a lot of the women in WWE. Hell, I'm going home early for a lot of WWE matches involving the men. But, like, if you put Tessa and Ty in the main event of Impact, I'm not going anywhere. I know they're going to put on a great match. If you put Bayley and Sasha Banks in the main event, I know they're going to just try to redo what they did once in Brooklyn 20 years ago. That's all this company is. So, to answer your question, Marcus, I would have no faith in anyone winning the Money in the Bank briefcase who's not already established because I don't have any faith in the gimmick in itself. It's not like the Royal Rumble, where it's kind of considered to be this sprint. You got to sprint through all these guys. There's 30 guys, and it's this violent, thing. And even when you win, you're still not getting some guaranteed opportunity. You're just getting another match, and you're getting it, only so long after having to fight 30 other or 29 other dudes to get it. It's like, all right, now I've beaten the rest, and I got to beat the best. And it's kind of like this. It's like this Mortal Kombat like step up. You beat Goro, now it's time to fight, Sang Shun. You beat, Kintaro, now you gotta fight, Shao Kahn. But when you win the Money in the Bank briefcase, you only gotta fight 5 or 6 other people, and then you get this fucking cheat code where you can use it to beat Shao Kahn after he's already fought 12 dudes. Shao Kahn's got 1 hit left, you cash in, boom, you win Mortal Kombat. Yeah. That's how the Money in the Bank briefcase works, and that's why it doesn't work as a gimmick to elevate stars.
Get in it, and they do this a lot too, and this is how they continue to water down a lot of the match concepts. Putting the opportunity that you had to earn on the line in a match, in a regular match, when you just went through basically a gauntlet. Mm-hmm. Waters down the whole concept of not only that match, but the fact that you won it. Because you're going to have somebody that lost the match which you won come and tell you, well, I don't think you can get it done. A real man will put his opportunity on the line in the match to make sure you earned it. That's fucking stupid. Why would I agree to that? I won it already, a-hole.
Hi, Randy Orton. We're talking to you. I mean, that's what happened to Rey Mysterio. He legitimately won the Royal Rumble, then lost his opportunity to go to WrestleMania. Oh, what a fucking dumb idea. All right, so we got Daniel Bryan, Rey Mysterio, Aleister Black, King Corbin, Otis, and AJ Styles. 3 of these men have already won the Money in the Bank briefcase. Otis, Black, and Styles have not. And honestly, I'm gonna eat some crow on this one. I think Otis could be a fucking draw. I don't think he's that good in the ring, but I think he's so different from the rest of the hoi polloi in the WWE that he could be, someone who stands out. Because he's kind of got that Eugene and Festus kind of dynamic about him where he's so different, you cheer for him, but he's not done so offensively that you feel bad for cheering or booing. Because it's like, all right, Otis is just a weird dude. Like, he's just this slobbering Tasmanian devil come to life. And it's endearing, not insulting.
Yeah, he's so awkwardly adorable.
Right.
It's like, oh yeah, that whole deal. He's adorable, and he's freaking got Mandy with him now. So again, you capitalizing off the Beauty and the Beast thing. I am with you on that, but that's the same reason why I'm not gonna pick him. I can't trust these bastards with something that easy to go with.
Right. I don't know if I would put the world title on him, but I would definitely push him to the fucking moon.
This is why you can't trust it. They can't just let something like this just naturally flow. They barely got him to her.
Yeah.
So like I love him and I hope he continues to take this momentum and run with the ball as much as he can. But I can never trust him with guys like that. I mean, look what happened to poor damn Zack Ryder. Got himself over and ran into the ground because he got fed to a 3-way angle between John Cena, Kane, and Eve Torres.
Oh God, Zack Ryder, what have they done to you?
So, well, they freaking fired him, but but yeah, I mean, I think to me in that scenario, it comes down between Styles and Black.
I don't even think it's that. It's gonna be Black, and I don't watch the product, but they're always putting Black in the third hour. They're giving Black a lot of opportunity to showcase himself. He's doing a lot of promos. He's doing a lot of squash matches I'm seeing. Now, I might be wrong. There might be other things I'm not noticing about him, but just from what I see from their YouTube upload alone, they are presenting Black in the most dominant of lights. And Vince McMahon cannot be this stupid to give someone like Black, easy. Because, didn't he beat, Bobby Lashley in, 2 minutes or something like that? Like 3 weeks ago? Didn't he just beat someone in, a minute and a half that was, some big name?
Yeah, some today. I wouldn't be surprised if it is Lashley. Yeah, it probably was Lashley because he's getting distracted by his blacked cohort.
Listen, I don't have a problem with interracial dating, but anytime I'm seeing Lana with Lashley, I'm going straight to that blacked idea. I just am. I'm not a good person.
Look, it's not really debatable what you're saying about Black at all, but I am wondering because of your whole idea or your perception of how you feel about the Money in the Bank cash in, how much more can you appreciate a Black cash in because of his knockout artist appeal now with that Black mask? He don't need to wait for somebody to be damn near on their deathbed. He can put them there. Right,
but you still, I think, you still need to have that authentic when Rob Van Dam did it, that was the best way to do it. He looked John Cena in the eye and said, "You're gonna be fine until One Night Stand 2, because I'm cashing in that night, John. So get ready." And that's why Rob Van Dam should have had a much bigger win than he did, but because they needed to do the whole Edge spearing him, it hurt his fucking win. But if Black goes up to Drew McIntyre or Braun Strowman and tells him, 21 days, I'm knocking your head off. 19 days, I'm knocking your head off. And then he goes up to him at the start of the show going, "I ain't doing it till the end of the show. You got time to prep." And then at the end of the show, he comes in and kicks his head off in one single kick and wins in 20 seconds. I'm fine with that. But you got to do it. You got to present it in a way where the person he's beating isn't being taken advantage of. Have Black win in 15 seconds. That's fine. I don't have a problem with that. But have Black win 15 seconds over a healthy opponent. Like if so, Mike Tyson's doing a lot of boxing work right now, and his trainer's like, hey, he might do a comeback, right? You knock out Mike Tyson at the height of his prime, you become a goddamn icon. You knock out Mike Tyson after he's fought 26 dudes in one night, you're just a bully. And I think that's kind of what people don't realize about the Money in the Bank briefcase is when when a face capitalizes on a heel, it doesn't make them a star. It makes them a jackass. Ooh, CM Punk beat up an already hurt Edge. Sweet job being a bully there, Punk. No wonder Colt Cabana hates you. So I would rather see Black actually win like a real match. You can win it in 20 seconds. I don't have a problem with that. I'm not one of them dunces like, you're going to have a 35-minute Kenny Omega match or otherwise it's not good. Tell a story. You can tell a story in 20 seconds. You got caught, kid. That's the story.
And even more than that, it makes more sense with that time because of Black's kick.
Mm-hmm. See, now every time you say his name, I'm hearing Black did. And I'm like, why are you talking about Lashley? Come on.
Because of Aleister's kick. Now that makes more sense. But I think, again, people have it's the shock and awe of the surprise cash in, like you said, and over the logic that you're presenting. And then it's if such and such losing this time, that makes him look weak. I'm like, oh, well, if that's the case, then you should give no credibility to anybody that was in that Rumble with Lashley.
And
again.
That's the thing that really pisses me off. Jose Aldo might be one of the greatest, what was he, a featherweight? And Conor McGregor knocked him out in one punch. At least it felt like one punch. Beat him in like 20 seconds. No one said Jose Aldo looked weak. They said Jose Aldo got caught. They said if Jose Aldo got a rematch, he'd do a lot better against Conor McGregor. Wrestling fans need to stop looking at it like, well, the longer the match goes, the better off you are. Says who? It's not that case.
No, Chad, you will not ignore my false finish fetish.
Oh my God. Dude, I don't know what's worse, Black as a fetish or the false finish fetish. Because they're both pretty bad. Don't boil someone down to the race. It's offensive. And I'm not the guy who worries about that. And I'm telling you that that's offensive. But more offensive than telling a black person they're only good for one person, for only one thing, is telling a wrestling fan that false finishes are good. They're not. They're the worst. And I hate you. I'm standing up for black people and long wrestling matches with one finish. That's it. Those are the only two things I care about in this world. The COVID can get me. The killer wasps can get me. The two hills I'm dying on are those. Don't marginalize people to sexual objects, and don't do 48 fucking kickouts. Those are my hills, and I'm dying on them. How do you feel about world hunger? Fuck them. Let them drown. Let them starve. I won't have 48 kickouts in a goddamn wrestling match, though. I'm going to Congress. Angelina Jolie's talking about fucking hunger for kids at the Congress, and I go, Congress, we're facing a real epidemic in America. Someone championed COVID-19? No, we're talking about false finish kickouts in pro wrestling matches. And then the murmurs, oh yeah, he's right. Then all of a sudden I become a goddamn icon. They demolished the fucking Abraham Lincoln Memorial and put mine up there because I'm a goddamn savior.
Imagine some real awkward Space Jam looking dweeb comes. Excuse me, Your Honor. I'm here to represent the false finish community.
Why do they always look like the pedophile support community? They look like one and the same. Only this one's 3.5 feet tall and looked kind of like a naked bird alien from Space Jam, but still largely the same. Look at me, I'm getting political on my show. Okay, so I'm going with Black to win. That makes the most sense. He's the right guy for the job. He's super over. Well, he's not super over. But, you know, if we're going with WWE logic, he's the guy that they're going to book to win, even though they're going to book him to have a cheap... They're either going to book him to have a cheap victory or they're going to book him to lose a clean match. So it doesn't really matter. His push is dead anyway.
Oh, man, that's such a money concept. Like the guy, because they're making Galloway, McIntyre to be a knockout artist with that Claymore.
Mm-hmm.
So imagine the guy who kicks people's head off, gets his head kicked off.
See, now, if you're doing it, if Corp Bauer or Scott D'Amore was booking this, that's exactly what they'd be booking. It's going to be a 5-minute match, and whoever kicks first kicks last. And that would be a great idea. But wrestling fans would poo-poo that idea because they're so ingrained with how the WWE books things that they can't get away from it. Like, think about that, Marcus. So many wrestling fans hated the New Japan style of booking when they were the only ones doing it, but then when Ring of Honor and WWE start doing it, all of a sudden it's the only thing that they'll accept now, which is something that New Japan, while still does, is getting away from. And they're like, what do you mean having 4 8-man tag matches? That's redundant. Oh, this match only went 4 minutes and it ended in a knockout. Who does that?
Bro, don't tell me about Omega Okada. It's all about Gargano and Ciampa, bro.
Oh my God. Your white boy voice is my new favorite thing. Sorry, your white bro voice is my new favorite thing. Fucking Matt Riddle. Shut the fuck up, Matt Riddle. No one likes you. All right, so we're both picking black on this one?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to make you mad with who I pick for the women. It's Asuka. There we go. Shayna Baszler, Nia Jax, Dana Brooke, Lacey Evans, and Carmella. Who's your pick?
I want to say, Baszler so bad, but I'm gonna go with Nia Jax.
Nia Shaq.
Okay, if for no other reason than they put, oh my God, like the Samoan community has gone from the Wild Samoans and the Rock, and that's just of what I know. I mean, obviously it stretches back farther than that, but them Usos, Kishi, all those guys, Reigns, and it ends the Money in the Bank tonight with Nia Jax and Tamina as champions. The potential for that, just to piss fans off if nothing else, because again, what this company is already tanking at this point creatively. I'm going with Jax.
I'm the big bag, Jax Straddle. Shaka Jax.
By the way, I was thinking about it. Do you think she should use Big Show's ladder?
I'm sorry, I said Jack Sham. I didn't hear you. What did you say?
I was thinking about this, and I know this could be seen as potentially offensive. What are you trying to say about that? Would it be a good idea to have Big Show's ladder in there with her?
Are we talking for a practical use or for more of kind of like a gimmick, like how Big Show used it as like, look how big and strong I am.
I think all of the above.
Well, I don't think she needs it because even though she's very large, she's still probably lighter than Otis.
This is true.
Otis is 310 pounds and he's 5'8". That dude needs to lose some weight because he's heading to an early grave.
That's what, a 5th trimester type feel? Yeah.
Essentially. Jax is essentially, I think, like 280. So she's not light by any means, especially for a female competitor. But, Big Show was legit 360 when he needed to climb that ladder. So, like, I don't know. If you want to do it as a gimmick, that's a good idea because, she is, like, twice the size of all these other women. And I don't mean that facetiously. Maybe Baszler's 150, if that. But like Lacey Evans probably 130, Carmella's 110, Asuka's probably 115. Dana Brooke might be on the heavier side of 150 because of how much muscle she has. But Jax maybe has doubled the size and weight of both of all those other 5 women. So you put the extra big ladder in there, it puts her over as this big force to be reckoned with. But then again, Jax has been so badly booked and she's such a shit worker that the fans who are going to be amazed by her size. We already saw what she did with Alexa Bliss 2 years ago, so it doesn't really matter. The mystique of that is gone. And for the ones who won't care about the size, they're going to look at her match ability, and she's shit at it, so it really won't matter. So I don't know. Do what you want. I don't give a fuck.
Who you going to surprise pick? Were you going to pick Jax too?
Yeah, I was. Then you fucking bogarted it, man. God damn it. Like, Tamina's not the worst thing in the world, but she's not good. Jax is terrible. But, like, if they were any other 2 women from it doesn't even matter where they're from. Like, just any other two big women, it would be awesome. A heavyweight female title fight, that'd be so cool. But then you get a heavyweight female title fight with Tamina and Nia Jax, and you're like, that's gonna be so terrible. Yeah.
Like, because obviously we have nothing against, but I mean, it's not really. I mean, it's say what you want. I mean, we talked about the whole Jackson R and why she's there and why she gets promoted so much, but she really does suck on that in-ring stuff.
She's terrible.
And while the whole point is it's supposed to be looking like you're hurting your opponent specifically when you have her gimmick, she's really effing people up.
Well, think about it. Becky Lynch has legitimately only ever gotten over because Nia Jax legitimately broke her face.
Yeah, she literally punched into the main event of WrestleMania.
Not even Goku could do that.
I punched you and your damn ticket.
See, that would have been holy shit. Imagine the build-up for that. Like, if you actually knew what you were doing as a promotion, after Becky goes into WrestleMania and wins, that's what they should have done for this year. Who Becky even faces? Oh, Shayna Baszler. Fuck that. But, like, if you actually knew how to do booking, the minute Becky became a star, you would do the angle where Nia's like, if it wasn't for me, you wouldn't have that. Because that's half the reason Big Show became as relevant as he was, because fucking they botched the ending of Royal Rumble 2000. And Big Show's entire fucking crusade was that Rock was eliminated and that he wasn't. It was a great fucking idea. It got him over, but I don't know.
That like you said, that would have been priceless, and the whole point of her kitten, it really could have did, and not on the same level because it was just better executed. But they could have did like a thing, like when to 2011, what they did with Henry, going after Orton the way he was.
Mm-hmm.
With Becky talking so much about being a badass, this would have been like that legitimate thing where it could have been how it was with Punk and Lesnar. Yeah, he put up a hell of a fight, but he got mauled. So that could have been a thing.
And I think people are going to go straight to, well, Nia Jax was hurt. Well, so I've talked about this before. I tore my knee up my junior year in high school, and I knew in April that should everything go well, I was going to go from having 9 months out to only 1 more month out. And then I could return to physical activities. And, when you have an injury, you have constant checkups. If you have a surgery that's healing, or if you broke a bone, you're going to go in at least 2 or 3 or 4 times to get reevaluated to make sure everything's healing correctly. So you would have known before WrestleMania, well before WrestleMania, that there was a chance that Nia Jax could go for WrestleMania. And then if you decide at Royal Rumble that, like, hey, she'll be fine in 2 months, book for it. Have her walk in as number 30, have her wait outside the ring, have her step in and throw out whoever the last one standing is, and she wins, doing next to nothing. Then you do the next 2 months where she's not wrestling, and she's just talking shit to Becky. And I love that line you had. I punched your ticket straight to the main event. And that's it. Like, that's all she needs to say. And then you just use recaps, and you have Becky talking about how, she's bigger and better, but, she's not going to beat me. I'm Becky Balboa, and I have the worst accent in America. Maybe not the last part. I can't stand her voice, though. And then you have Nia Jax go in there. Dude, Becky and Seth Rollins are the perfect match, because I would never want to hear either of them talk ever again. But, like, you could have Nia then go in after saying only one line of dialogue. Like, that's it. That's all she needs to say is, I punched your ticket to the main event, and now I'm going to punch my championship ticket on your ass, or something like that.
Yeah, I mean, you plant a seed of doubt with the dialogue, because, look, she went through everything she went through with Shayna, Sasha, Ronda, Charlotte, and all that stuff. Then Sasha came back and all that. And then she went through all that, proved herself, and then still had doubts because she didn't beat Asuka, which was a legitimate thing. Asuka not only beat her, but she also won the Royal Rumble. So that was the whole thing. So she circled all the way back around to actually beat Asuka.
Yeah.
If she was going through mental hoops thinking about that. Imagine if she had to sit with months like of interrupted footage. Well, not interrupted footage of her matches being interrupted by footage of what Jax did to her after having saying I punched your ticket to WrestleMania, after having some edited footage of obviously the nose bleeding, whatever, and then the whole thing with the main event. Now you planting seeds of doubt, or you just outright pissing her off with having to even see this, and then you cap it all off with an attack, and then that sparks the flame to take you from there.
I wouldn't even do the attack. I wouldn't even do the mind games. I would literally just do one segment right after the Royal Rumble where Nia Jax does that line you said, which is fantastic. I punched your ticket to the main event. And the next time we face each other, I'm going to punch my ticket to your life. Because I'm taking the belt and everything you won at WrestleMania. And then she just walks away. Now, what you do, I like part of the idea that you said. Instead of interrupting her matches, you play the highlight of Nia Jax knocking Becky out every week, right before Becky's match. And you have Becky watching the highlight package before every match. So it's not so much done to be like a mind game, but now Becky's seeing it. And now all of a sudden Becky's no longer as confident. It's starting to, and every time she sees it, it pisses her off even more. To the point where she loses a match, non-title, but she loses a match because she's so enraged that she can't focus. And Nia hasn't been seen in weeks at this point. Because that's the whole point, is that this story is about Becky's own confidence eroding away. And Nia getting to her with one line and one punch. And then you bring her back right before WrestleMania. And Nia says one thing to her. Or not even to her, but on an interview. And they just ask her, like, do you have any thoughts, Nia, on Becky's deterioration and her lack of confidence? And Nia can just say, it took one punch to knock her out for a month. Imagine what a handful or a fistful or a dozen of them are going to do to her at WrestleMania. And then she just leaves. And then you go to WrestleMania and Nia slaps her down in 90 seconds. Just brutality. Now you're going to say, well, that's going to ruin Becky, but that's the whole point. Nia beats her in 90 seconds and just destroys her, bloodies her up and everything. And then Becky for the next 12 months has one goal, to get Nia back at WrestleMania. And then you run Nia through the gauntlet. You have Becky run the gauntlet to get herself back. You start off with a nobody like, I don't know, Bailey. Someone who sucks. And then you run her up the gamut until Royal Rumble, where they go, we're not doing a Women's Royal Rumble this year. It's going to be Becky, Charlotte, one-on-one. Winner gets Nia. And then Becky beats Charlotte. And then Becky goes into the next year's WrestleMania to face Nia, regained her confidence, and now it's not a 90-second beatdown. It's a longer, more drawn-out match that shows both strengths and weaknesses for both characters. That's how you do proper long-term building, my friends.
And that's New Japan style booking.
Yep. And that's with Nia.
Exactly. Freaking exactly. Half of which the credit goes, half of that feud, she's not on TV. You're serving so many masters with it.
That's the only way it works.
That's all the way it works. And the other thing, too, is it gets over as a monster no matter, obviously, how dangerous she is. You would hope in this time period she gets better, but
she won't.
Not in control.
No, you book every match to be under 3 minutes. And I'm not joking when I say that. Like, every match she has, whether it's Charlotte, Oshkosh Bagosh, Shayna Baszler, it doesn't matter. They don't go more than 3 minutes with Nia. You make her seem unbeatable to the point where they stop booking her on Raw or SmackDown because they don't want to, deal with possible injuries, quote unquote, kayfabe injuries to the talent because of how dominant she is. She's no longer being booked for non-title matches because the risk of health injuries is just not worth it. She's so dominant.
Which is kayfabe. Like, she's so dangerous. It's dangerous.
Basically, I mean, like you said, we're serving a lot of masters on that idea.
Exactly. She's a freaking. She can just completely copyright Darkwing Duck. Like, let's get dangerous is a new moniker. Hey, but you're also serving Becky in the long term because when was she her hottest?
When she got her ass beat.
Exactly. When she was Becky Balboa on her back foot, not when she was dominant, chasing people, coming out dressed up like whatever the freak she was wearing that night when she was looking like Corbin at commentary. Like, they eroded everything that made her relevant in the first place to the fans that had been with her when she was losing all those matches. So the fact that we just booked that.
We booked that whole we booked 2 years and 20 minutes.
2 years. in 20 damn minutes.
I think the biggest issue with Becky, why she hasn't really ascended to the next level, because let's be honest, there's a difference between The Rock and Batista getting you roles in movies and you earning them. Because apparently Becky Lynch is going to be in a Marvel movie because The Rock and Batista have so many pulls in Hollywood now. She didn't earn these roles. She wasn't a big popular star to earn these crossover roles. I don't care how she gets them. I'm not going to begrudge her for getting these jobs. I'm happy she's getting these jobs. But I want people to understand that there's a difference between The Rock earning a movie role because of how popular he is and Becky getting a movie role because of how many friends she has. The reason why that's the case is because they try to make her into a female Conor McGregor, which is why she's doing the flamboyant outfits and talking so much trash. But she got over because she got her ass beat and got back up. And I think if they had gone with that idea for her instead of going into this Conor McGregor-esque route, it would have been a lot more self-serving. It would have been a lot more beneficial for Becky, and it would have gotten her a lot more crossover potential. But instead, a lot of the women's success can be boiled down to, well, you played around with Ronda Rousey. What did you expect was going to happen? So now that, you don't have Ronda Rousey, all of a sudden it's back to basics, and people are like, well, why'd that happen? Well, because they're not as big stars as Ronda Rousey. And Ronda Rousey can't get movie roles because of how terrible she is at acting. So, like, the idea that Becky is this new Conor McGregor idea, it's been detrimental to her career, I think. At least it maybe hasn't been detrimental, but it hasn't been rewarding her with the abilities to go as far and, be as far as she could have gone. It could have been a lot more, I think. A lot bigger. But they mishandled it. They went Conor instead of Rocky, and what are you going to do? You can't call yourself, Becky Balboa and then, pass yourself off as a dominant champion. We're just not going to buy that. Balboa is a name of an underdog. Something she's not. Yeah. So
nobody wanted to see a Rocky movie where he started acting like Mr. T.
Right. Rocky's whole appeal was that he was just doing his thing, and maybe I'll win, maybe I'll lose, but I can't not fight, Adrian. And even, goddamn, Rocky 6 is the best of the films. Fuck off. It's the best. Rocky's to his son. He's like, all you can do in life is get hit and get back up, and that's how winning is done. It's not about how hard you can hit, it's about how hard you can get hit. That's Rocky. Becky, she can call herself Becky Balboa if she wants, but she's never embodied that. And that's part of the reason why Cena never got as big as he could have been. Because you didn't book him as the big dominant hero. You booked him as the fucking scrawny nerd. Oh, how's Cena going to win this? He's 6'2" and 285 of pure muscle. I don't know. He'll figure a way. He's pretty solid in that department, guys. But they always booked him like he was Rey Mysterio. And it's like, well, why isn't John Cena more popular with fans? I don't know, because you booked him like Rey instead of Goldberg? Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, she had that concept and that vibe. I mean, I remember when those string of matches she started winning on SmackDown was going on the radar. Like, she very much had that great appeal of, it don't matter if I take, 50 L's, because when I get that one W, that's all that's going to matter.
Yeah.
And, you strip that away, like, that she's not really even built to be a bully. No. I'm not talking about it in terms of aspects of personality, but look at it. Like, you have to, so much of and I get that we're trying to go away with that, a lot of those concepts because of where society is wanting us to go. But there is something to be said for when you have somebody like an Oscar trying to do a face-off with somebody like Nia Jax. The aesthetic of that is half the appeal that's going into it. As should it be for like the promotion, as should it be for the style of match that's executed, all that stuff. So the whole concept of like, no, Becky could easily bully Nia. From what logical point in the concept of the whole good and evil, big and small, the freaking Andre versus the smaller guy concept? Like, if it's not broke, don't fix it.
Yeah. It's an easy out, but the problem with that is that usually they don't let the big guy win most of his matches, so it doesn't really matter. But in this case, we would rectify that. And here's the thing, like, you can be a smaller dude and still win fights, for real. But you got to be a special kind of dude, or dudette. I'm not being gender specific. But 9 times out of 10, if you put Brock Lesnar in there against Conor McGregor, Brock Lesnar is going to go to lunch. He's going to eat Conor's ass, is what I'm saying. I just heard it. I said it and then I heard it.
I was really trying to jump in like, yeah. So the concept of Rey Mysterio versus Brock was cute, and even when they gave him the lead pipe, adorable. You know what Brock almost did that night? He almost killed the father and the son anyway.
Well, like think about the first time Brock and Ray tussled. Ray was strapped to a goddamn gurney, a back brace board, and Brock picked it up like it was nothing and played baseball with it. That's probably got to be the worst bump Rey Mysterio ever took, man. Like that, he bounced off the goddamn steel post. His back bounced off the back brace, and then he landed on his face with his hands clutched to his side. Oh god, that had to suck. So yeah, but anyway, big guys can get beat by little guys, but most of the time the big guy's going to win. And if you don't utilize that concept more often, it becomes a tired trope. Like whenever the big guy is the last one standing in the battle royal, he's not winning because he never does. So let's move on. Got 2 more stories involving little guys. Let's start with this one. He had a little mental breakdown. It's ACH. He was on a podcast called The Submission Squad, and he said it wasn't even a wrestling matter. ACH is upset because he wasn't booked right. This was some serious shit. I honestly wish I had did things differently. I had people trying to tell me to use mental issues, not as an excuse, but say it was the thing. You're depressed, right? That's why you're lashing out. I was angry. I'm not going to be like, sorry, mental illness. That's a serious issue. I'm not going to say things like that to smooth things over. I had a meltdown in front of the entire world. I broke down in front of the entire world. I said so much stuff, and if I was to go back and take it all back, it really sticks to me. I went from working in my dream job, providing for myself. I was finally at a space in my life that I worked to where I was starting to feel comfortable. I've sacrificed a lot for pro wrestling. I don't expect anything back, but I made a lot of sacrifices. I'm ashamed of myself. I'm embarrassed. This is something that I'll never be able to shake. I know I embarrass a lot of people. Most importantly, I embarrass myself. I'm just not used to this type of negativity and attention, waking up angry for no reason, mad at the world. Truth be told, it's all my fault. I'll take the blame for this. I could have put the phone down and deleted my Twitter app. He goes on to say, it took my passion away from what I love. I don't have a passion for anything else but this. Once it got taken away to the point where I don't even want to watch wrestling, I wake up like, what is my life's purpose? Without my passion, what do I do? It's going to be a stain on my career forever. He ended by saying, I want to apologize. I know I could have handled myself correctly toward all of it. I could have been more intelligent, and I could have stopped myself. I'm sorry. I feel like I let a lot of fans down and people down and who supported me. I know I let a lot of people down. That hurts the most. I'm truly sorry. So we talked about that for a long time, you and me. What do you feel? How do you feel about ACH now that he's apologized and taking ownership mostly of his actions?
I dig it. I like it. This is a part of it, man. We don't pretend to be psychiatrists on any level here. We're just human. We've had experiences. We've seen stuff. We've read stuff and all that stuff. But we kind of had a pretty fair and decent picture of what was going on there with him. And specifically to do what we've seen it so many times with guys that guys and gals in that company. It's just so very easy to get frustrated with that creative, so much so that it's eroded away their concept of what is meant, or their childhood concept of what it means to be in that company. Because reality hits you real quick when your talent level is here, but they put you down here. Younger, but you're being paid, but you're feeling like you're not earning that. It's so many different mental gymnastics, I'm sure, that go on. But I think the beautiful thing is here we got to see him go through that experience, even as bad as it was at the time, and he's being transparent enough to let us in on the other side of it. And like you said, being accountable and taking responsibility for his actions, things he said, and recognizing, because the first step in a lot of stuff is acknowledging it, the root of it in the first place.
Mm-hmm.
So you think it's real big of him to really to come out and say all that and say that to the degree he said. And it kind of reminds me of what happened with Sasha when she stepped away. And I think when you get down to the crux of her whole thing, she had to kind of go and redefine what was important to her outside of that passion for wrestling, because it's very easy to dive head first into WWE because not on the schedule, just the overall grind from so many different perspectives, the physical, the mental, the emotional, and it becomes all that you have, all that you can think about, and you frame things that actually matter, like family and other stuff, kind of beneath that. And then when that starts to crumble, you have to go back and kind of redefine the importance of that stuff that actually matters. So I think, we, like you said, we talked about it, and we knew, like, look, man, just take a step back. You just need a break. You need to take a step back. Because when you're close up on it, you can't really. It's easy to get muddled, but when you walk off and you really get a full wide shot of something, you can look at it from a different perspective. And he just needed to take back and breathe and get a different perspective of it. It can still be important to him, but it can't be so important that it consumes him to the point where he's not even. It's like he was having an out of body experience, and then we was watching it.
Yeah.
And so it's crazy. But the fact that it seems like he's back to some form of level headedness, and he can kind of redefine a lot of those things that he loves, or maybe not love as much now for himself, and not let other people tell him what to do. Because it definitely didn't help that he did it through social media, which is a cesspool for effery on every possible level. So, I'm just, it's good to hear from, like I said, it's been some time, and for him to take a personal, responsibility. Because so many times we've seen so many guys that will just blame the business and blame people in it, and won't take any personal responsibility, even to the death. They'll take it to the grave. It was all Vince. It had nothing to do with me. But, adults take a step back and factor themselves into the equation of their perceived problems. So, that's a real cool moment to see from him.
It's one of those things where I don't. Let me word this properly. I think there's something of a mental issue, because like when you go to that route to such a degree, it's a sign of some imbalance. Now, I'm not saying it's a reason for why he's a good person, a bad person, why he did it. I'm saying that there's usually something hand in hand. Because usually when you're angry, you're not angry for days. You're angry for an hour. Then you realize that you done fucked up, right? This went on for like a week or two. So I feel like there might be something still that he should address with someone who's qualified, even if it's just to talk. Even if it's not a diagnosis. Maybe he was just really angry for 2 weeks. It would still be helpful to talk to someone, But that's more me just being worried for him, because everything he said I love.
Yeah.
He didn't make excuses. He didn't cop out. He's like, dude, I fucked up, and I'm sorry. That's all we need. If you are a human being with a soul, that's all you should need, is an honest, earnest apology. And now, he doesn't necessarily owe you and me one, because we don't know the guy. But when you are so full of vitriol like he was, and he attacked so many people, and he lashed out some random mid-tier WWE employee who was just trying to help him, like, that's a dick move. But to own it is a real man's move, and it's and the earnestness in, because like, dude, he didn't pass the buck on anything, and he's like, dude, it wasn't a mental health thing. I was just fucking angry. I fucked up. I'm sorry. When you have that kind of sincerity, it's very easy to forgive someone. And now I'm like, well, I don't want anyone involved with him, because he might be a problem. And then he had that issue with MLW, and I don't know what happened there. Maybe he was still really worked up. Maybe he was still really angry. But I think he deserves another chance now, because if he's taking this kind of ownership, that's a good thing. But I'm also, I was saying all that, and I completely forgot about the MLW thing until I remembered it. I kind of want to know why MLW, because they used him once and fired him the night he debuted, essentially, because of something that happened. And I don't know what. Maybe he just wasn't happy. Maybe he got into a fight. Who knows? But I would like that situation to be addressed, because if I'm a prospective employer, I would like to know if I'm getting in bed with someone who I can't trust.
Yeah, man. I mean, I'm right there with you. Like you said, loved everything he said, and for all we know, he could be getting therapy. I'm hoping he's getting some form of therapy. I think even people who haven't had, his degree of potential breakdown, from however perspective you view it, need therapy just in general. Life is This thing is hard, and obviously we can all check quarterback and speculate all day, but it could be a myriad of things. But maybe one of those situations where he, it was finally getting what he wanted, or things he asked for, but it wasn't packaged the way he wanted it.
Mm-hmm.
It could have been a thing of wrestling was the pinnacle, it was everything. He was sacrificing a lot of either relationships or aspects in his life that he would otherwise be nurturing. So when the wrestling thing isn't panning out, it's kind of hard, because then you start thinking about that other stuff. But if nothing else, if he was reaching that pinnacle of success in wrestling, at least he could justify that other stuff falling through the cracks.
Mm-hmm.
So now that was crumbling, then everything else is now he got to deal with that, and it just looks around and it looks like that planet on everything in his life looks like that planet and Thor Ragnarok, the trash planet. Everything's just going to shit. So and it could have been all that crumbling, and he was using social media and his interactions with people to vent, obviously vent in the wrong ways. Like, I think what was it, Shad of Crime Time, that kind of was like, look, dude, you need to pump the brakes. It was somebody.
It was either.
Oh.
I was supposed to say it's either Shad or JTG. Well, duh, that's all it could be.
Because I feel like it was more Shad. Because I feel like if JTG's the guys that in the middle of all those releases go, hey man, if you don't pick up the phone,
JTG, you are a gem. I think it was Shad, because Shad has had his own, not like outbursts, but he's had his own fair share of issues. He's been arrested before for causing a scene, and I'm sure there's other things. I'm sure there's a lot of ability for him to relate to what ACH was going through. So I would imagine it was probably Shad. He seems very kind of well put together in his older years, so it's very possible it was Shad. Can we just appreciate the fact that I think it was Shad used to go by the neighborhoodie? What a great gimmick!
Oh, the neighborhoodie. Oh, that could go so many different ways.
Right. Let me double check, because I want to make sure it was him. No, it was JTG who went by the neighborhoodie. He went by the Beast.
That for JTD, that almost actually makes more sense.
Yep. In early 2006, during his feud with OVW with CM Punk, Gaspard was joined by the neighborhoodie and formed a new tag team known as the Gang Stars. That's not a bad name to go with the Monstars, the Gang Stars.
Exactly. I was just thinking about that.
Dude, JTG's only 35? Jesus. That dude got a fucking shaft in the business. Someone bring back JTG and Shad. Maybe make them like a parallel of Crime Time, where they come back dressed as Crime Time, but they're speaking very eloquently like they're from Connecticut. Oh, that'd be funny. So we have one more story to talk about. Lio Rush.
Yep.
Lio Rush says he may never wrestle again after coronavirus-related acts. Here we go. I legitimately might not ever wrestle again. That's all he said on Twitter. Yesterday. No context given. Marcus, Lio Rush says some shit a lot. Are you buying the shit he's saying today?
I don't know. I think I felt like I watched him on Shane Strickland's podcast.
I actually just discovered some more context, so hang on.
Gotcha.
This isn't him saying he's never going to wrestle again. He's saying I legitimately might not ever wrestle again. Follow-up tweets, my shoot interview is going to be insane, so many topics of discussion. And then he tweets out 1 week. So I think what he's saying is that he might never wrestle again because of his shoot interview, which is dropping next Monday.
Okay, in terms of, he can obviously wrestle again if he means in the context of him wrestling within a bubble of WWE.
Well, he might be saying that he's going to be coming on. God damn it, Chad! Why are you saying so many things tonight? I think he's saying in the context of he's going to be dispensing so much dirt that no one's going to want to hire him again. That's what it's sounding like to me.
Yeah, now see that now that because like you said, there's no in depth. They kind of like a lot of vague stuff, except obviously counting down, if you will, to this shoot interview. Now it's like you don't really have no. Like maybe he thinks this is a good marketing employee. You don't really have no frame of reference. Shoot interview because he could be like venting and using a lot of poor dialogue, or it could just or he could be overselling it, right? Like the whole, like I talked about with a lot of those crime drama shows, one will fall.
You know,
He could be overselling it.
You got Marisha Hargitay, you got everyone else on SVU, and then you got random jobber number 4. Oh, I wonder who's gonna die. Oh, it was the jobber. Oh, I never saw that coming.
Yeah, if he hops it up like this, and then all we get is he ran into racist Michael Hayes, we could be like,
Michael Hayes is racist? What? I'm so shocked. Next thing you're gonna tell me is Vince is old and out of touch with his audience. What are you talking about, Leo? He's also doing music, so maybe that it might be like a layered kind of thing. Like I might never wrestle again because I got music to fall back on. But I feel like Leo Rush's music is kind of like Mickey James's music. It's cute that you're doing it, but we don't really care about it. Like, let's be honest. Mickey James ain't playing at the Grand Ole Opry, and Leo Rush ain't going to what's that place in New York, Marcus? With a lot of the R&B and rap performers perform at. It's like the Grand Ole Opry, but it's not.
It's a Summer Jam.
No, it's like a old theater. God, what the hell is it called? Google. Go into Google.
It's not the Hammerstein. It's not the Apollo.
It's the Apollo.
Yeah. Apollo, yeah.
You know, I don't see Leo Rush performing at the Apollo anytime soon. Like, I just don't. It's not going to happen. Is that right? That's New York? Yes, Manhattan, New York. There it is. Okay, I was right.
Yeah.
So, like, you know, Mickey James ain't going to the Grand Ole Opry. Leo Rush ain't going to the Apollo. It's adorable you're doing it. But if you're a pro wrestler and you're not making a lot of headway on mainstream radio services or streaming devices like you know, Spotify, you might be best to stick to what you're good at. Although Mickey James is hurt, isn't she? Or is she just awful? They've taken her off television.
I want to say she's hurt, but it feels like she's in one of those "we have nothing for you" zones.
It's like the Queen song. It doesn't really matter to me. Boom, 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 boom.
Like that. I know it might seem like a slap of nepotism, though you have far more credibility to kind of supersede that thought that could cross some people's minds. Just show up in NWA and clash with Melina already.
I mean, shit. 3/5 of Impact's roster is just people that Sami Callihan knows. You got Jake Christ's wife, Nieva, whatever her name is. Sami Callihan's dating Jessica Havoc. Fucking, he helped train Dez and Wentz, I think, and Trey Miguel's there. Fucking Wentz's girlfriend just debuted, Kimberly. You know, fuck. I think I think Trey was or maybe still is dating Alicia Tout. I don't know what Dez's wife, because he got married, I think. I don't know what Dez's wife does, but she might pop up for all we know. Fuck, you know. And then three other guys, Larry D, AC Romero, and Sawyer Fulton are from that region as well. So it's like, fuck, just hire everyone from that region, I guess. I don't know. It's weird. Marcus, we had 3 topics tonight. We went 2 hours.
Yeah, we good like that.
That's chemistry, my friend. That's chemistry. I'm going to go watch some shitty wrestling, I think. And no, I don't mean Raw.
Ah, damn it.
Sorry, Marcus. All right, we're done. Unless you have anything else you want to touch on.
Nope, that's it.
All right. Marks and I will be back on Thursday. We are not going to be doing Why the Last Man this week because we're waiting for Zach to join us, so that's going to be next week. Marcus, are you still game for doing the Blade Trinity for Thursday?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. So Thursday we're reviewing all 3 Blade movies, scores included. God, that third one's going to be fun. Honestly, while the first one's going to be better than the third one, I think the first one's going to be the hardest for me to get through. I think it might be because I don't mind Dorf as the main villain. I just don't think he lands hard enough to be the main villain of a film franchise, if that makes sense. Like, they had better villains in the subsequent movies, I think. Dorf was kind of just like a dorky, thin dude. Should have made Bullock the main villain. That would have been fun.
Yeah, no, that actually would have been. But I wonder, does the concept of him being the main villain age better once you see those, how they elevated and with the subsequent films?
Well, I think Drake and Splitjaw, whatever his name was. What was his name?
Nomak.
Nomak. I think Nomak and Drake. Granted, those were the most early 2000 names you can come up with. I think they're better villains entirely. Especially Drake. Motherfucker. I like that. Stephen Dorff doesn't have any of those lines.
Oh, yeah, they definitely upped it, but it felt like, because that was like a starting point. Like, one, like the first movie very much felt like almost Neighborhood Blade.
Yeah, they did escalate the concept. Although 2 had a bigger concept, I think, than 3 did. But I guess rewatching will figure that out.
Yeah, but it did definitely. It felt like in the first one, this was like the neighborhoody version of Blade.
Can we just get JTG walking around in his Crime Time gear as Blade?
Exactly. So it made sense of, like, if he's a neighborhoody and the Frost is like the big time drug dealer up on the hill, if you will.
Yeah, I could see that. That definitely does have some legs. I'm gonna rewatch them tomorrow.
Yeah.
I forgot what day it was. So I'll figure out tomorrow how I feel about it in context. Zach and I will be back tomorrow to talk about this past week's Impact Wrestling. We'll talk about the North's fun little segment, Moose taking himself out of the #1 contender tournament, and more. Trey is in the #1 contender tournament. I was like, well, what? Okay, I guess. So there's that. Excuse me. And then Swish and I may not be on this week. I haven't heard from him yet, so we'll see. And then we'll be back on Saturday. So tomorrow, right here, twitch.tv/WrestlingUnderground at 9 p.m. Thursday and Saturday and Friday, if we have a Friday show, twitch.tv/Comic and GameCorp. Comic and GameCorp podcast? No, it's just twitch.tv/Comic and GameCorp, right? Yeah, it's just Comic and GameCorp. That's what it is. I know my own Twitch streams. What are you talking about? So you can find us at Podbean at realnerdcorp.podbean.com or by downloading the Podbean app, signing up. It's free. You just need a profile and searching for us on the app on your mobile device or cell phone or whatever you got. And downloading all our past shows. You can do it through the Podbean app, or you can just go to the website at realnerdcorp.podbean.com, download them straight to your computer. Marcus, you can be found on Paradox Kid, PARADOXKID.
That's me.
That's him on Twitter. You can also find him on his other podcast at The True Penny Show, at True Penny Show, TruePennyShow on Twitter as well. And you can find me on mine at Chad Nerdcorp, ChadNerdCorp on Twitter, and on Instagram at Chad's Photo Hut, ChadSPHOTOHUT. You can also find the website at realnerdcorp.com. We're back up and running. I was able to get in and fix the plugin issue that we were having, so that's taken care of. You can also find us on Twitter at NERDCORP and on Instagram at RealNerdCorp. I had an idea for this week's WCW, but I had it on Thursday, so that's gone. So, Marcus, if you have any ideas, help me out. I don't know if we'll go with yours. I might remember who mine is, but I could use a
Oh.
little salting regardless.
I'm okay. I'm gonna go with a long time favorite all the way from my childhood, Gina Torres.
Yeah, I don't think we've done Gina Torres. That'll work.
No.
She's what's she doing now? It's that spinoff, right?
Yeah, she was. Yeah, I think it got canceled. Unfortunately, she was doing a spinoff of Suits. Pearson. Yeah,
That got canceled already. Damn.
yeah.
She was great in Firefly and Serenity. I love her.
I love this Cleopatra, man.
Who was she Cleopatra on?
I think it was Xena.
No shit. I didn't know she was on Xena. Interesting. I'll have to go look that up. So that's all we got for you guys this week. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for checking us out. Thanks for giving us a chance. For Mark Strain, I'm Chad Porto. This has been another edition of the Wrestling Underground podcast. We'll see you next week at 10 p.m. every Tuesday during the pandemic. Then when we get more live wrestling, we'll be back on our Sunday and Tuesday schedule. So, well, let me just ask you this: you want to do our show Sunday this week instead of Tuesday because we got Money in the Bank?
Yeah.
Okay. So we'll no show next Tuesday, but we'll be on this coming Sunday for another edition of Wrestling Underground. So tune in Sunday as soon as Money in the Bank is over. That's when we'll be on. So if it's ends at 10:45, we should be on by 10:50. If it ends at 9:42, we should be on by 9:47. If it ends at 2 in the morning, we're in bed. Fuck off. We have a limit. So be sure to check us out on Sunday, guys, at whenever Money in the Bank ends. That's when we'll be on. Twitch.tv/Wrestling Underground. With all that being said, Marcus, take us home.
Stay inside me.